The Shimigami Tensei series is one of the longest running JRPG series out there. The first game in the series actually came out just a couple months before the very first Final Fantasy game in 1987. The games all share some common elements such as its difficulty, its use of mythology and religion, and its setting. The Shimigami Tensei games all take place in a modern-day Tokyo, usually with post-apocalyptic elements. This decision to set the games in a modern post-apocalyptic Tokyo was made to differ the series from other fantasy game franchises. The Shimigami Tensei series is meant to be pretty dark and give off a sort of feeling of despair. Like I touched on earlier, a big part of the series is religion, with the translation of the series' name being Reincarnation of the Goddess. Along with the mainline Shimigami Tensei games came a lot of spin-offs, and I mean like a ton of spin-offs. It's just crazy. This actually brings us to one of Shimigami Tensei's insanely popular spin-off series, the Persona series, which coincidentally is what this video's focus will be on. So without further ado, I bring you a Persona 1 retrospective. Now I know what you're thinking. Isn't Persona that game that people use to fill the void due to their lack of relationships in real life? Yes, but Persona is actually so much more than that. It's an amazing JRPG series that mixes slice-of-life elements with dark real-life themes. Now, for this video series, I actually went back to play the first 3 games, thinking it wouldn't be too much. God, was I wrong? These games are legitimately long as hell. I swear when I was playing these games, I was in high school more than when I actually went to high school. Speaking of high school, the first game in the Persona series actually came to be as a result of the popularity of a high school setting in Shimigami Tensei If. This first game is called Megami Inbunroku Persona, or Revelations Persona, or Shimigami Tensei Persona. Now, as a preface, I will be going over the PlayStation Portable version of the game, simply because it was more accessible to me and it gave me access to the alternate story route. The game begins with introducing you to some important characters who will become your party members as the game progresses. First, you have Nanjo, the heir to his family fortune. He means well, but he can seem kind of rude and aggressive. He has a special bond with his butler, who raised him rather than his parents. Then we have Masao Inaba, also known as Mark. He's the kind of troublemaker of the group, and he shares a rivalry with Nanjo. Now, there are some weird localization changes concerning Mark, but I'll touch on those later. Ellie is the typical popular girl character who aspires to be a model in the future. Ayase is exactly what she looks like. She is extremely blunt about her feelings and will complain when something displeases her. There's also Yukino, who used to be a street thug, but has changed her ways and now acts as an older sister to the other students. And then we have Brown. Brown is the one who convinces everybody to summon a demon playing a game called Persona, which essentially kicks off the game's events. Oh, and how can I forget? We have us! Kid with earring. Huh, that's pretty straightforward. Well, like I was saying, Brown convinces the group to play Persona, claiming that it can show them their future. After completing this ritual, nothing happens for a second. Then, all of a sudden, a crying little girl in white appears and startles the party. Before they really have any time to react, you and a couple other of the students get mysteriously knocked out by some lightning. Indoors. While knocked out, you, the protagonist, has a dream of a man named Philemon. After learning that you have the ability to remember your name in his realm, he decides we've been good this year and gives us and the friend group the ability to summon personas. After waking up, you and the other students who were knocked out, Nanjo, Mark, and Yukino, go to the hospital to get checked out and visit their friend named Maki. Maki is a chronically ill and frail girl who has constantly been in and out of the hospital. Recently though, things have gotten worse and she has been bedridden for a year. Here, we learn that Maki is not too fond of her mom, and she believes that her mom cares more about work than her. Mark tries to change the subject, but Maki suddenly cries out in pain and we have to call the doctors in. While Maki is getting treated in the ICU, the students wait in the hallway when a random earthquake happens. After it subsides, the group discovers that the entire hospital has turned into some sort of maze, with the ICU just straight up disappearing. In the next room, we discover that demons have attacked Nanjo's butler, which transitions us into our first battle. In this battle, we discover the ability to summon our stands, I mean, personas. And for some reason, we all summon weapons out of nowhere. So, Mark, you wanna talk about where you got that? After this battle, we manage to run into Ellie. She then brings the group to the shrine to meet up with Maki's mom, who may have some insight into what's going on. Maki's mom describes that she works for the Sebek Corporation, and was tasked to work on something called the Deva system. This system was used to change reality, and is the cause of the earthquake and the sudden appearance of demons in the hospital. It is then revealed to us that the culprit behind this is the president of the company, Takahisa Kandori. After learning this, we go back to the school, and discover that Maki is all of a sudden better and walking around. Her personality also seems to have changed completely. And here's where the story of the game splits in two. The main route is the Sebek route, which involves the protagonist, Maki, Mark, and Nanjo's attempt to stop Pandora's experiments. With this route, your fifth party member is not completely set in stone. In fact, you can practically choose and decline whoever you want to be in your party. Each party member is fairly easy to obtain, besides for Raiji. If you are not playing this game with a guide, I swear there is no freaking way that you will even know he is an obtainable party member, because the steps to get him are so needlessly hidden. As a short explanation, at the beginning of the game, you have to go to a certain classroom to even start the encounter with him. Then you have to follow him to an abandoned building to continue. Now, besides the confusion of attaining Raiji, I really do like the option to choose your fifth member. It makes each playthrough of the game different and adds some replayability value. Now, in terms of gameplay, when you go into a dungeon, you are greeted with possibly the worst first-person dungeon crawling movement ever. It moves too fast, and it really hurts my eyes. Now, don't get me wrong, you get used to it after you play for a while, but it never really makes you feel like you're moving at light speed. Navigating these dungeons is pretty straightforward. It's just a simple case of going straight and turning when you need to. I'm kind of embarrassed to admit this, but it wasn't until this replay of the game that I noticed you can actually sidestep while walking if you use the triggers. This makes navigating the dungeons quite easier, because sometimes turning is kinda bad. Now, you'll be spending a lot of time in dungeons, and with these dungeons come a lot, and I mean a lot, of random encounters. So, with this, it's pretty important to know how to take care of these encounters efficiently. When in an encounter, you have a menu with many options. You choose all the actions you wish for your characters to perform, then after the party's turn, it's the enemy's turn, and it repeats. Pretty simple turn-based RPG combat. In terms of combat options, the basic attack option makes your character use their melee weapon. It is important to remember that the position of your character actually matters. When using a melee weapon, the enemy absolutely needs to be in the range of your character. Another option for combat is the shoot option. If you couldn't guess, you obviously use your ranged weapon to attack the enemies. Ranged weapons have better range than the melee, and you can use your guns from wherever your character is placed. This also raises the question of how the hell do these high schoolers get guns? What is this, America? You also have access to the skill option that has all of your attacks that come from your persona. With this, you only have access to the skills of your currently equipped persona. Using a skill also costs SP. When you use your persona can rank up. Ranking up increases the persona's stats and teaches them new skills. Obviously, when you get a persona, it is important that its affinity is good for the user. The better the affinity, the faster they rank up. If you've played the more modern Persona games, you would know that only the main characters are the ones who can use more than one persona. While in Persona 1, every character can use multiple personas. This allows you to choose the personas that best fit their affinity, which makes for a better battle experience. Now, I do have a couple critiques on the gameplay. A staple of SMT and Persona is the fusion of personas/demons. In order to fuse personas, you need their spell card. You can combine these spell cards in the Velvet Room to obtain new personas for yourself or a party member. You obtain these spell cards by doing quite possibly the most infuriating mechanic in the whole game: negotiation. Each demon you encounter has a different personality type, and these personality types determine which negotiation options you need to select in order to persuade them to give you their spell card. But there are way too many options to be able to remember how to persuade these little fuckers. So, you guess and guess until you get pissed off enough to look up a negotiation guide. And oh yeah, it's so confusing, even the guides manage to mess it up. Now, the battles aren't necessarily difficult, but the goddamn encounter rate is too high and you run into enemies every 5 steps. So that results in you just ending up in a hell loop of the battle theme. In terms of the story of Persona 1, I personally think it falls a little flat, but I'll chalk that up to it being a pretty dated game. Like I touched on a bit earlier, the game has a main route, which is the Sebek route, as well as an alternate route. The Sebek route starts up after you meet with the strangely recovered Maki at the school. The protagonist, Maki, Nanjo, Mark, and whatever other party member you decided to go with, all confront Kandori and end up cornering him in the Deva system. Here, it is revealed that Kandori has his own persona and he uses it to knock down the party and run away. After getting back up, the group somehow manages to corner Kandori once again when a little girl in a black dress named Aki appears. She then uses her mysterious powers to knock the party out and send them to another world. When they wake up in this strange world, they strike up a conversation with some classmates from the original world. These students were sent here months prior as test subjects of the Deva system. When talking to these students, we find out that the Maki that has been traveling with the party isn't our Maki. It is actually the Maki from this world, which explains the sudden recovery and attitude change. After some exploration in this alternated world, the party manages to find and corner Kandori for a third time. Here, we discover Kandori's whole goal with the Deva system is to create a reality where he is a god. And here lies one of my biggest problems with the story. Kandori is just a bad villain. We know what he wants to do, but we know next to nothing else about him. He is very one-dimensional, and it seems that he's simply evil, just for the sake of being evil. After the party's first fight with Kandori, he is then possessed by his persona, Nyarlathotep, and then he is finally defeated. While he is dying, he reveals that the Maki that is traveling with the party is the ideal Maki, a version of herself that was created within the real Maki's mind. Previously, Maki's mind has somehow come in contact with the Deva system, and overcome with the desire of a better world for herself, she created another dimension. In the process of the creation of the alternate world, Maki's mind became split. Her fractured mind created the ideal Maki, who was healthy and confident in herself. It also created 3 more beings. One we have already met, named Aki. Aki is the representation of everything bad in Maki, being a fan of chaos and generally cold and hateful to everyone but Kandori. Aki is contrasted by a little girl in white named Mai, who represents the innocence and the good inside of Maki. Then there is Pandora, the personification of her nihilism. This is the part of Maki that wants to use the Deva system to destroy everything. After Maki finds out that this whole world is born from herself, she begins to blame herself for the actions of Aki. It is revealed that this world was born from jealousy, jealousy of everyone being able to do what they wanted while she was stuck in a hospital bed all day. Maki flees in an attempt to hide her sadness. The party finds Maki and they attempt to convince her that none of the events are her fault. We then use the power of friendship to help her understand that she is not alone and we'll miss her if she's out of our lives. We manage to get her to join the party once more, and we set out to get the last compact to stop Pandora. With that, we have to journey to the Sea of Souls, the area where all human life begins. The protagonist and Maki are the only ones that can journey to the Sea of Souls, so it is up to us to rescue Maki's true self. Here, in the Sea of Souls, ideal Maki confronts the real Maki, and basically condemns her for wallowing in her self-pity instead of actually trying to change herself. After the conversation between the two Makis, we get the last compact. With the compacts in hand, the party journeys to the video world with the intent to defeat Pandora. There, we are greeted with an underwhelming boss fight with a really good battle theme. After successfully defeating Pandora, all of the pieces of Maki begin to merge back into one. We all start to fade away, but right before us, the main protagonist fades away. The ideal Maki kisses us on the cheek and confesses her love to us. Since ideal Maki isn't real, she has to stay in this alternate world. Back in the real world, the effect on the town begins to reverse, and months later, the real Maki is restored to full health and is able to join us for graduation. And that's it for the main route of Persona 1. But, like I said in the PlayStation Portable version of Persona 1, we have access to the originally Japanese-only route. But before that, I want to talk about a major theme that you may have noticed throughout Persona 1. It's the butterflies. Like, everywhere. There's one even painted on Philemon's mask. I feel the reason for these butterflies is to convey the theme of maturation and rebirth as your true self. And you can see this through the Sebek route in Maki. She is dominated by these negative emotions and jealousy, and throughout the story she grows and matures, which results in her becoming healthy at the end, and being her true self. Now, am I perhaps reaching on this interpretation of the butterfly theme? Maybe, but whatever. This is my video. Jerk. Having gone through the main route of Persona 1, I want to talk about the North American localization of the game. In my opinion, the strangest localization changes were made to the characters. One of the most notable changes is Mark. They completely changed his race in an attempt to make the game more ethnically diverse. A lot of the characters' names were also changed in order to be more American. With this localization, practically all references to Japanese culture were cut out. Yen was changed to dollars. Persona's names were completely changed rather than actually being translated. And the difficulty of the game was changed to decrease encounter rates, which personally I think was good, and increase XP gain. Now we can finally get on to the alternate route. This is the Snow Queen quest. In the original North American version of Persona, Revelations Persona, the Snow Queen quest was actually cut with seemingly no explanation, but I assume it was cut because the game was being rushed to be translated. But, luckily, like I said earlier, the Snow Queen quest is completely accessible to us because we have the PSP version of Persona 1. In order to begin this route, you have to head back to the school after speaking with Maki's mother at the shrine. Here, you have to walk around the school and gather information, which brings you to Satomi, who tells you about the Snow Queen play, a tradition of the school. In this play, the main lead has to wear a mask while performing. In learning this, you discover that there is an urban legend circulating around the school that the mask is cursed, because everyone who has played the role and worn the mask has passed away, except for the protagonist's homeroom teacher, Miss Sayako. After we find the mask, Miss Sayako talks with us about the Snow Queen play after seeing we have it. She then puts on the mask stating that it's just a legend because she wore it previously and is still alive. Though after putting on the mask, Miss Sayako is possessed by a spirit in the mask and freezes the entire town. We find ourselves in the school courtyard with the possessed Sayako. The mask speaks through Sayako, calling itself the Snow Queen. We learn that the mask has a hatred for Sayako and plans to use her as a sacrifice to bring forth the Eternal Night, which is an event that will freeze the entire world over. With this, our main goal is to figure out how to remove the mask from Sayako. Our main man Philemon contacts us and gives us the Demon Mirror, which is the key to removing the mask's curse. We then set out to find the shards from the Demon Mirror that were broken by the Snow Queen mask so it cannot be used against it. These shards are obtained by going through 3 dungeons and doing certain tasks. In order to get the good ending, you need at least 8 of the shards by the time you confront the Snow Queen. What I really like about the Snow Queen route is that it's not really too linear. You can do any of the dungeons in whichever way you want to. But there is an ideal way to do it, and that is the Hypnos Tower, the Nemesis Tower, and the Thanatos Tower. Hypnos is the easiest tower, and Thanatos is the hardest. We discover that the spirit that is possessing Miss Sayako is her former classmate, Tomomi Fujimori, who was disfigured by the mask when she wore it in place of Sayako. The party uses the mirror and the collected shards to free Sayako, and also bring peace to Tomomi. Then, it's revealed that Tomomi was actually under control of the Night Queen, also known as Nyx, who we have to fight to free the town of her power. After defeating Nyx, the game ends with the party heading to the Sebek building to help with saving Maki. And that just about does it for Persona 1. I really want to thank you all for watching this video, and if you want to hear about Persona 2, stick around for my next video. See you later!